What's up, marketers, and welcome to another episode of the Growth Colony podcast. I'm Liza from X-Growth to tell you that each episode we bring in B2B leaders to chat about how you can achieve those everyday wins in the marketing world. Whether you're new to the B2B game, working at a leadership level, or even just showing some interest, we know you'll love the episode. But just a warning in case you have some little ones around, as this episode contains the use of coarse language. So grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to Growth Colony. I'm Alex Sipwell. Today I'm here with Shahin and Vinnie Romano. How are you both going?
Good, cheers, Alex. Nice to see you. Hey, Shahin.
Doing pretty good. Hello, everybody. We're back with another episode. Hot stuff.
Yeah, and we're going to get straight into it this time round. First off, we're going to chat about LinkedIn and Ipsos's B2B marketing benchmark report, specifically just a few pieces out of it. And one of the things that came out of it was that B2B tech marketing leaders are more focused on attracting new customers than retaining existing ones, with 85% of tech marketing budgets allocated towards landing new business. And these marketers plan to rely on thought leadership content primarily to reach prospective customers next year. This is more than marketers in other industries. And it's worth noting, like globally from B2B CMOs, not just in tech, this was the biggest challenge for them. 85% of tech marketing budgets, that's a pretty big number. I was pretty shocked to see that.
Yeah.
And what's
What
going on here?
do you think the reasons are? What do you think the reasons are for that? Is it the hangover of, the 2021 shopping spree plus AI investments? Do you think? Like to carve out 85% of tech marketing budgets are allocated towards landing new business. There's no emphasis on the word new in there, but I'm making the emphasis on that. I mean, I just don't understand. I kind of do. I kind of understand, but if it's revenue led, it surprises me that nurturing and expanding existing customer accounts, which is the lowest hanging fruit, quickest to convert, isn't the focus first.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you see that shift, right? Because 12 months ago, it was all about profitability, right? 12 months ago, it was all about, hey, we need to be profitable. We need to be, the money that we're making, we got to show this level of profit. We're going to cut jobs. We're going to make redundancies. We're going to show that P&L is improving. And you definitely are starting to see a shift on that front. And I think the other one that is interesting, guys, is that when you look at public companies, and most of the tech companies are their aim is to go public, right? Like they're like, hey, we're going to just grow. And our goal is that IPO. We're going to raise money, and then IPO. And that's interesting difference between an organization that, maybe it's service-led, if it's like, we're service-led, right? Or financial services, or somebody else that is not backed by all the VC money, that they're like, all right, we've got to look at profitability and shareholder return. So I wonder if that has something to do with it, because they talk about specific tech marketing. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I'm in the startup space, right? So I'm across, the directives that you get from investors and shareholders, and what's been happening in the world of investment. Which previously it was all about, profitability, as you say. Now it's about battening down the hatches. But even still, if that were the reason now, why is the Ipsos report showing what we're seeing these stats saying, which is they're focusing tech marketing leaders in B2B are focusing the majority of their budget purely on net new acquisitions of customers. I just don't see the link. But if the link is that now in the startup space or in the investment space, that's where investors want their money being spent, or shareholders want their money being spent, that gives me even more reason to stay away from talking to investors. And I'm putting my neck out on the line here because for the last 18 months, mysocial.ai has spent, talking to investors of all different shapes and sizes, family offices, VCs, small VCs, angels, and we have not been successful in convincing any investor to give us a check. It just hasn't happened. Now, that might be because we haven't been explaining it as succinctly as they would like. You don't get as much time with investors as you do customers. But to shortcut this conversation, MySocial is now in a position where we're generating the amount of money that we were asking for our minimum raise. And so we don't actually need the investment anymore. And so now I've still got investors coming and checking up on me. And I'm now saying, we're putting investor conversations on hold. It is such a pain in the ass, investor conversations. Such a pain in the ass.
Does that feel good? You're like, yeah, man, we're not interested in your money anymore.
Oh, look, it's certainly liberating. Let me tell you, it's liberating because you're no longer having to. I've never liked the idea of going cap in hand and almost putting these people on a pedestal simply because they have the money. And if the advice that you get as a startup when starting on your capital raising journey is that you want to be strategic as to who it is that you speak to. You want to make sure that you're talking to investors that A, know your space, B, can be involved organically so that they're not just a money generator, that they actually have, some personal interest in investment in your space. But that list is really rather small. And so when we finished sort of talking to that small list of that particular type of investor, we then went, okay, well, let's broaden our horizons. And then you start speaking to people who don't necessarily meet that criteria. And then you're speaking to people that are so far away, and you start talking to the people that have a bad reputation potentially in some instances in the investment world. And that is also what I found recently is a major watch out for other investors to invest in you if you have an investor on your cap table who has a bad reputation within the investment community. And then you throw in the news with, we're going way off tangent here, but then you throw it, then you see in the news that, Australian laws in terms of who is classed as a sophisticated investor, those rules are now being tightened up. And so now you've got all these investors that are no longer being seen as sophisticated enough under the new terms, under the new rules, and there's backlash from all investors. So back to the original point, where does this all come from? If it's all being, if this is all directive from companies that have shareholders, that have investors that are driving this because they're looking at the economy and where things are at, it's blind stupidity, if you ask me. At the end of the day, get back to the basics and invest your budget on the low-hanging fruit and buy yourself runway. Maximum amount of it.
Tech doesn't like that. The tech loves the new hunt, the next whale. And I think, that is, whether you're in the investment stage, investors are looking at your organization, and this landscape is a little bit different. And I want to point out, I have not raised money, and we're also just completely bootstrapped. But we've done a lot of studying. I've done a lot of studying on either public companies. We do work with a lot of public companies, and trying to understand that space. Now, the other thing that I would say is the investment space in Australia is quite different than in the US, where in Australia, there's a fair bit of focus. There's a lot more focus, not fair bit. There's a lot more focus on profitability and when are you going to break even than it is in the US, where in the US, that conversation almost never happens in terms of when you're going to break even. But I think we briefly touched on this on our last catch up, where they did this analysis, and Thomas, I think his last name is Tungas, if I pronounce
Tungst.
it. Tungst?
Thomas Tungst.
Tungst.
Is it?
Thank you, Alex. I think, he did this analysis where they looked at different quarters and he's like, hey, in the last quarter, it flipped. It flipped, meaning that the increase in a stock price of an organization, previously they were talking about profitability, and it just flipped and went back to normal. Now the stock price moves based on how much growth they experience. And even large companies, like they report on how many new logos they've landed this quarter when they do their quarterly review. Like they don't, it's fascinating because, most of your money comes from existing customers, but that is not even what the analysts want to hear. It's like, how many new logos did you land compared to, hey, you're competing with AWS. How many new logos did you land in that space? So I wonder if just the market is going back to growth.
This conversation has yet again shone a light on potentially my naivety into the way in which the economy is run, right? Because it comes down to the people at the top that are analyzing the way in which the world is going, and maybe there is so much future sight that's going on in these big boardroom conversations with the world leaders that ultimately what falls out is something that to everyday people like us three, we're not privy to those conversations. We don't have that foresight, and it's their decisions that look silly right now. But to a B2B day-to-day marketer in a tech SaaS startup, we're not spending any paid media. We're not spending any money on paid media. We can, but we're not. We're more interested in building our presence organically, continuously learning and working towards product market fit with the people that we are fortunate enough to be working with from an organic perspective. And might I add that since day one, we haven't spent a single dollar on paid media. And as mentioned, we are now in a position where we no longer need the investment from investors. That's not to say that paid media doesn't have its place, but from a perspective of what works and what doesn't, we started with 0 customers. We've now got a handful of customers, and the majority of our revenue is coming from existing customers to get us to where we've gotten to. And not a single dollar has been spent on media. Where we believe the money needs to go to is to building a better customer experience, seamless, frictionless. That's where the money is invested that we receive from our customers that come back for repeat, because that's ultimately what it's all about, isn't it? If you're building something, you're building it for the customer, you have to make sure that they stay happy. Why bother wasting 85% of your budget looking at the next 12? Sure, look at the long term, like that, right? That's actually the nicest part of that sentence. But to be focusing purely on net new acquisition and not looking at repeat business and looking at paid media, not organic, it's ludicrous. It's a waste of time, a waste of money, waste of time, and you're going to be sending everyone spinning their wheels.
Yeah, the paid media thing. Yeah, you just highlighted that. I didn't really pick that up properly until now that you just double clicked on that.
This is orange water, by the way. It's not wine.
That's all right. We can have wine. In fact, we're gonna have everyone's ordered wine for next call. Just do wine and tequila shots in the back of it.
Wow, that would be fun.
But I think we're gonna produce better content. I think I'm gonna be more entertaining for sure. But
what? Finish your point about the paid media.
No, I think that was really interesting. That you're right. Like the organic component is not mentioned over there, and that 85% of it is going to paid.
You got to remember. You got to remember that the report is done by LinkedIn, and LinkedIn's main revenue generator is
the ads. It's paid media.
Well, LinkedIn's main revenue generator isn't necessarily sponsored ads.
Sales Navigator.
The reason why LinkedIn is such a good business model is because they have multiple revenue streams and they don't rely on ads. But ads is a significant
income.
Ads is a significant revenue income for them. And I believe the report is geared towards marketers, which is where they will likely spend the majority of their money on LinkedIn. If you were talking to sales, for example, you'd probably be gearing it towards Sales Navigator and other products.
A little bit of a nudge. A little bit of nudge doesn't hurt.
But LinkedIn, in this instance, organic media is not mentioned by LinkedIn in this particular report because it's not a revenue driver for them when talking to marketers. And so just tempering what I said with that knowledge, we're only reading a report which is obviously promoting paid ads to the audience that they want to promote it to. That's not to say that the information is skewed, but it is certainly with a focus on just paid media. Having said that, I don't think that enough B2B tech marketers focus enough on the power of organic. And that's what My Social sets to is set up to change.
Talking about organic, did you see TikTok's ad?
TikTok.
No, sorry, not TikTok. The KitKat ad.
The one that was based on the Google DeepMind study of
have a break and then
have AI break. Yeah.
Yes. Did you see that?
Yeah, it was great. That was a great example of B2B creativity. Great example.
Just for people who haven't watched the ad, because you're probably listening, basically, this is a KitKat ad that shows side-by-side ChatGPT getting what the DeepMind scientists introduced as optimization by prompting. And I'm saying it like that because it's a capital PRO. So it's a method to improve the performance of the LLM. And you can kind of see like a split screen with the prompting. I don't really love that term. And without it, and the difference in results. So basically using that tagline of have a break with the GPT to make it have a better result.
We'll put the link in the comments. But yeah, what are your thoughts? What were your thoughts on that, Vinnie?
Firstly, when I saw the campaign, and I hadn't seen the research, but when I saw the campaign, I saw it on LinkedIn, and I saw it from one of my favorite influencers, Ali K. Miller, who I believe she's quite high up at AWS, Amazon, from an AI perspective. She regularly shares great content, lots of followers. And so, first and foremost, it's because it was her that was sharing it. I was more prone to listen. So social selling 101, right?
Rather than me sharing it, for example.
Rather than you sharing it, because I just scroll straight past you.
Yeah, you don't give me any love, man. I need a little bit more love, buddy.
I don't think you post enough, buddy.
Oh, shots fired. Shots fired.
We've been talking about it.
Okay, all right. Let's go back to Ali's post. All right.
The squeaky wheel gets the grease, doesn't it?
Fine. Let's go back to Ali's post.
Right. So I saw the video come up, and I actually watched the first half of the video without clicking on the video. I was watching it and reading the subtitles, which is the experience that all of us get on LinkedIn or on any social media. All videos do not autoplay with sound unless you enable that, right? And I haven't got it enabled. So I was that hooked. I was that enthralled by the video itself without any sound. And what I did was, which is what I normally do when I am engaged, and I've watched, a portion of the video, in this case, a full first half, I click the sound on and I take it all the way back to the beginning.
I totally do that.
And I watched the video, and I thought that is a great example of B2B creativity. I think I even shared it with you guys. And in the same post shared by Ali, she shared the piece of research that the guys at Nestle and the agency that put it together used as the inspiration. And the report goes on to say that any LLM or AI copywriter responds better with a higher percentage of accuracy when you start the prompt, which is so critical. When you start the prompt with, let's take this step by step, right? So because it's a natural language model. It's a natural language model. It is designed to be engaged as if you're talking to it like you're talking to a human. And so what was really interesting about this research, which had nothing to do with KitKat, was that Nestle took that research and went, let's take this step by step, is similar to our globally famous strapline, have a break. Now, at first, let's take this step by step versus have a break as a prompt is a bit of a stretch, but it's open and there waiting for someone to capitalize on it, right? It's a beautiful, and if you think about it in the second part, it's a beautiful interpretation that makes for a wonderful B2B campaign idea, but most importantly, it's led by data, but even more importantly, it's fueled by human creativity. For me, and my mantra is, automate where we can, humanize when we must. For me, it is the embodiment of taking a piece of research, being led by that, human creativity coming on top of that to pull that information out and turn it into something which is relevant, which is fresh, which is never really sort of been done before. But of all brands to do that, a fucking chocolate bar.
Yep.
A B2C FMCG product. I just thought so many B2B marketers can take.
We're behind.
Can just take so much from that. And it's so simple. It's so simple. You read a report, you've got someone who can interpret that report from a creative standpoint, runs with it and turns it into a 1 minute 30 video, which isn't promoting KitKat necessarily, or not, in front of your face, but it's by association, and then shared on LinkedIn in a B2B platform where they understand that professionals eat chocolate too. It's another example of turning around to B2B marketers and saying, you're a fucking idiot. How do you not get this? How do you not get that this works?
Yeah, it's so true.
What B2B marketers would do is they'd share the report.
Oh, so true. So true.
They'd share the report.
Or do a thought leadership on it, and let's put our thoughts on it, and just create another report, reference the old report, put it on LinkedIn, run ads for people.
Exactly.
To download. And
don't get me wrong. There is a place for that.
Yeah, there is.
If what we're discussing here is, something that we've discussed on a number of times.
But we're not going to be discussing that on the podcast. No. It's not going to get discussed. It's not going to make it to the podcast. But when it has its place. But guess what? That report that is customized and then put on LinkedIn for ads
is not being discussed. Yeah,
it's not going to make it to to this podcast for us to have a chat about it.
It's not going to make the headlines.
Growth Colony headlines, man. Everyone's looking at those headlines, so it's not going to.
5-star rating of headlines. I tell you what. But you got to temper that with it's something that is not always done. Right? It's not always done. And so therefore it's probably more reason why it is making the headlines. But that's exactly the reason why it is making the headlines, because in order to grab attention, you have to do something. In order to sit in the top 1%, you have to be willing to do what the other 99% won't.
Yeah, that's going to be the quote of the podcast. It's a big headline. Right after the title of the podcast today. Done. But yeah, it's such a great point. It's such a great point. And it's just, you're right.
I think it's
you go. No,
I was just going to say, it's been a burning topic for us on previous episodes, creativity in B2B. And I think, if every episode that we do, if without really having to go looking for it, I think we'll struggle to find one per episode.
Yep.
Without having to go looking for it.
True.
I'm really glad we have one to talk about.
Yeah, no, but it just shows how much we still have from a creativity perspective. How much we still need to learn from the direct to consumer space.
Yeah, 100%.
The other thing that I came across recently, now this is not, we usually try to cover the most recent things that have happened in the B2B or related to B2B in the past month on the podcast. But I found it interesting, something that I came across where, we are obsessed with NPS. And there was a video that we recorded about a year ago, and it talks about how NPS cannot actually predict retention. And there is almost no correlation between what your NPS is and how your customers renew, or how often they renew. What is the rate of renewal? There's no relationship. And that it was just very interesting, because a lot of people that you talk to kind of put NPS on this pedestal, and it has become this, one number to tell you everything about the company. But Vinny, did you have a chance to have a look at that? It was a little bit of a long video.
Yeah, I watched it. I've never come across the guy before. I think his name was Edward Daines, or Dane Edwards.
Greg Daines.
Greg Daines. Sorry, Greg, if you're listening. My conclusion was ultimately, when customers get results from your product or service, no matter how modest or spectacular, this is the key driver for retention. So results equals retention.
Yeah.
And when he arrived at that point, the thing that fell out of my head was, okay, well, is he talking B2C? Is he talking B2B? But comparing the two, it's inconclusive as to what he was talking about. I would imagine he's talking about B2B. And B2B products and services.
He's B2B, yeah.
So he was talking about B2B?
Yeah, he was B2B,
okay.
Yeah.
So B2B products and services far outweigh the ability to drive results, as opposed to, laundry detergent, for example, right? And in B2B, it far outweighs the capability of driving retention, because what does retention mean? Well, retention or loyalty, if your B2B product or service delivers me results, part of the pitch needs to reference how quickly there's a higher chance that I'll continue to work with you.
Yeah.
So then how does that match up with loyalty? Like, how are you defining loyalty? Does that work when you're not dealing with a person? Can this message get across and be successful in results when you're not talking to a person in B2B? Like, can you drive retention without speaking to a person? Is my question, I suppose. If you,
I think so. I think what was, you're completely right. Like, it came down to, hey, if you're solving a problem and it's a big enough problem, they will stick around, and you retain them, regardless of how much they. It's just funny how much they say they love your process and your customer experience and all that stuff. Regardless of that, they will stick around. And the other interesting piece of information was the people who actually took the effort and the time to respond to the NPS survey overall had a higher retention rate than the ones who didn't.
It was significant too.
Yeah, so it was massive difference between the two,
irrespective of their actual experience. So whether it was,
that's right, exactly.
Whether it was bad or good.
Exactly, and they had a massive amount of retention from that group, and it when I was thinking about that, it was like, okay, well, if somebody is passionate enough or they're invested enough, they're going to give you feedback, right? And is that a measurement? Should you be working on, hey, how do we increase that engagement, and how do you do that by comes back to the product and the product market fit and all that stuff. And the problem that you solve, which is a lot more fundamental question rather than, we pamper them and we take care of this, we take care of that, and we send them, gifts and, all that stuff. And we have great customer service. Almost none of it matters at a retention level if you don't have that core correct product.
Well, hang on. I would challenge that. So having a good product doesn't necessarily mean engagement.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. I would say if you
let me crystallize that. So I like what you said in terms of, so his conclusion, Greg's conclusion was that results, if you deliver me results, I'm going to stay. You then referenced the part of the video which was people are more likely to stay, results or not. So if you're not getting them results, so the next tier down, so results up at the top, you get me results, I'm more likely to stay. Next tier down, people that are engaged enough with your product or service have a higher retention rate than those who do not, right? So if we're thinking about it like that. So then my question to you, so you're at that second part. So how do you get engagement, whether it's good or bad? It's not because, in my opinion, it's not because you've got a good product or service. It's because of the experience that you give them.
I see what you're saying. But maybe what I'm trying to say is, I think all of it boils down to your product market fit, and if you are addressing a painful enough problem or not. And what I mean by that is just looking at some of these conversations and the video is, if the problem is painful enough that you're addressing, people are going to be hyper engaged to solve that problem. And if your product the goal is to address that problem, but maybe they don't have a great experience with you, there is still a good chance that they will stick around and work with you to kind of get that up because they're so engaged in that problem. But if you are not solving a problem that they're hyper engaged in, and it's not top of mind, there is a good chance that they will not be engaged, they would not participate in your NPS, and they would drop off very quickly, regardless of how amazing your experience is, regardless of how lovely that engagement is between you and them.
I'd agree with that. It's the age old. Are you creating a painkiller or a vitamin?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And that analogy is actually quite nice when you think about it, because a painkiller is something that people, they're in pain, they go looking for the solution. Whereas a supplement or a vitamin is something that, I can kind of go without it, right? It's a nice to have. It's a luxury. I agree with you that proving product market fit is the problem a painkiller rather than a vitamin. If you are proving to me that you are trying to solve my pain, if you are solving my pain, that's giving me a result, therefore I'm looking to stick around. But that's not necessarily a determining factor as to whether or not I'm going to fill out your NPS score survey.
Okay, good point.
Right? So I might just want the solution and go. Right, brilliant, thanks, see you later. No, I haven't got time for that. How you get people to engage, in my opinion, is yes, you've got to have the product which is solving their pain point, but to get them to engage, whether it's good or bad, is to give them a hyper-personalized user experience.
Okay. My counter to that is, if you solve a big enough problem for people, you have a much higher percentage of people who would engage in providing feedback. That's because you alleviated a pain that has just been it's been so personal, it's been so deep. And I'm going to engage more.
I agree with you, but my point is not.
Okay, where are we not agreeing?
What I'm not disagreeing with you anywhere. What I suppose what I'm saying is, proven product market fit, you are killing my pain, but not everyone is going to respond to my NPS survey. How do I drive that number of respondents up? So I've got product market fit. Drive that NPS engagement level up by providing a hyper-personalized user experience. So you get more out of the product market fit category, people that identify it as a painkiller.
Yeah, I see your point. You're saying just increase that number. You're going to have you're going to be at 60%, but if you're
going to have a number.
Yeah, if you layer that personalization on top of it, that personal touch, it's going to go higher. No, I'm with you on that front. No argument there. No need to fight.
And I suppose no need to fight. But I gotta say, I do like the vibe of this episode. We're sort of jostling.
Jostling it is.
I'm loving it. I'm just sitting back. It's great. I'll just watch you two play tennis with each other.
Yeah, the Persian versus the Brit.
Today's episode of Growth Colony was produced by Alexander Hipwell and Liza Maywald. It was edited by Dave Samito with additional editing by Liza Maywald and music arrangement by Alexander and Liza. Special thanks to Tina Wabe. We couldn't make the show without you. Growth Colony is hosted by Shahin Hoda, Director of Growth at Xgrowth. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Do you think you'd be a great guest or just keen for a chat? Send through an email at podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's all for now. We'll catch you next week, right here on Growth Colony.